Hey, what's going on? It's Joe from Home Studio Corner. I'm in my mobile recording rig. Just kidding. This is my car. And it actually has something to do with what I want to talk about today. I'm not going to be home today, and I wanted to put out a video. And the reason I'm not going to be at home is I'm heading to other side of Nashville to a church that I've been helping out with part-time for the last 6 months. This is actually a church we used to be members of for about 10 years. Then we left to help start another church and another one. But their main music guy left, and they asked me to come in and be interim. If you've been following me for a long time, I was interim at this church several years ago as well. So this is my second stint as the interim dude. And why am I telling you this? Because there's been a cool theme that I've seen in a lot of my Nashville music friends, and it contrasts to a lot of the questions I get from folks through Home Studio Corner, and I think it's interesting. So let me start with the question. People will contact me pretty regularly, and they'll ask something like, "Hey, I don't really like recording and production. I really just, all I want to do is mix. I don't want to do anything else. Or all I want to do is master. I just want to do this one specific thing." It's almost always that. Very rarely do they say, all I want to do is record, but I don't want to mix. Usually it's all they want to do is mix, because mixing is fun. Mixing, you get to use all the different plugins. It's, you don't have to involve other people usually. You can do it by yourself, so introverts unite. And, you know, I've been running a YouTube channel for 10 years now, and mixing is the topic du jour. If I want a video to do well, generally if I make it about mixing, it does. Which to me is, I mean, it's fine, it's great, I love mixing too, but it's a little bit of a bummer because so much of what goes into a good mix, and I've said this 1,000 times, is how the tracks were produced and recorded, right? Get it right at the source and all that. Anyway, but that question intrigues me because I understand it. You read certain business or self-help books, and they'll tell you to find that one thing that you want to do and then focus exclusively on that. So for these people, they're saying, I want to mix, and that's all I want to do. By the way, I am paying attention to the road, Mom. I want to mix, and that's all I want to do. And then that, because the book said to focus on one thing. But now let's flip it over to a lot of my friends here in Nashville. Now, I don't know everyone in Nashville, right? But I know enough full-time musicians. And if there was any commonality among them, aside from the fact that they're almost always really nice people, it's that they do lots of different things. My one friend, you've met Steve Peffer. He tours with a popular country band. He also plays a lot of sessions as just a session musician, going to different studios. I once went and saw him at, was it Quad? No, it was Sound Kitchen, Sound Emporium. It's one of those studios in Nashville. And he's just a killer keyboard player, piano, organ, Whirly, Rhodes, all that stuff. And then he also produces for folks. So if there's a singer-songwriter that wants to produce a song, he'll do the whole process, the demoing, the recording, the getting the band together, and presumably he does the mixing and mastering as well for those. So that's one guy. I'm thinking of, I guess I probably shouldn't use everybody's name because I can get their permission, but I know you know Steve. But there's other people. I know a guy who regularly does session work at home for people who send him tracks. He's toured with lots of country acts, but he also does accounting work when he's not out on the road. And that's a part of how he pieces together a living doing mostly music. Another one is a really well-known musician, fantastic session player, does tours, produces big-name records, but he'll also play bass on a session for, some no-name like me who sends him a track and says, "Hey, can I pay you $100 to track bass?" And he'll do that as well. So all I'm saying is there are the people in the world like the Chris Lord Alges who all they do is mix. But I would, first of all, I don't know him, so I can't say for sure if that's all he does, but I would venture to say that his path to success was not one step, meaning it wasn't that he just mixed from the beginning. My guess is he did some recording, he did some producing, probably did some live sound, probably played in some bands, probably did a lot of different things, and mixing eventually emerged as kind of the thing he was best at, or the thing he could get the most money for, or became most known for. But I can't guarantee, but I would almost guarantee that if he had just started with mixing, he wouldn't have become one of the world's top mixers. Now, whether you like his mixes or not is irrelevant. He is kind of a household name within this little industry of audio and recording. And I bet he didn't get there by only mixing. So, what's the point? The point is, if you... I'm trying to figure out how best to say this. Everybody has different seasons of life. If you've been on my email list, you've seen we are moving. We're downsizing to a smaller house. There's just a lot of changes going on in our lives. Nothing terrible, nothing crazy. Somebody asked me yesterday if I was okay. Something happened. Nothing. I'm good. Honestly, this whole moving thing has been like a 9-month discussion, so it's nothing new. It's a little sad to have to pick up and move again and set up a new studio and all that stuff, but honestly, it'll be fun for you to watch. And we'll still be in the Nashville area. I'm still doing Home Studio Corner, but it's just been a season of looking for different ways to kind of diversify income, but also looking for different ways to use different gifts and to serve. So if you saw on my Instagram yesterday, by the way, I'm back on Instagram, so come follow me, Joe Gilder on Instagram. Come search me up. Come say hi. But I posted a picture yesterday of a separate church, a different church that I've been working at for the last 3 months. So for the last 2 or 3 months, I've been working for 2 churches, setting up and planning services for both, and then attending one of them. Now, one of those churches happens to be my home church where my family goes. We helped, we were a part of it from the day one when it launched. It's a new site location for a church here in Nashville. And the music guy was great. He got a better position at a different church, and they suddenly found themselves in need of someone to step in and be the coordinator for all the worship stuff. And the pastor called me up and said, "Hey, I want you to do it." I wasn't searching for church music jobs. In fact, I was already doing the interim job at the other church, which is why this is so confusing and crazy, but it feels very Nashville, if that makes sense. But I, thought about it, prayed about it, and just realized that this is something that I want to do. It's something I want to kind of add on top of everything I'm already doing, not to be crazy busy. Busyness isn't the goal just for the sake of busyness, but it's an expression of kind of the gifts that I have that I would already be using anyway. Like, I already help out with church music, and it would just be in a more official and kind of every week capacity. And I've done that before in multiple different churches several other times, so I find myself uniquely qualified to do that. And what's really interesting is years ago, remember I used to work at Sweetwater from 2006 to 2009, straight out of college, freshly married, moved my wife from the Nashville area up to Fort Wayne, Indiana, newlyweds. Fort Wayne's great, Sweetwater's great, but moving completely out of your own region of the country as newlyweds, that's a tough one. But when we were realizing we didn't want to stay there long term, we wanted to get back to this area in Nashville, or just back in the South, because my family's in Mississippi, her family's here in Tennessee. The only thing I knew to look for would be sales jobs, because I was a sales guy at Sweetwater, or church jobs, because I had done church music my whole life. And I actually interviewed for several different church jobs. I've never talked about this. Several different church jobs in Mississippi, actually, closer to where my family is. Flew down from Indiana 2 separate times to 2 different churches to lead music at their church, and then to interview with the people and all that. And those didn't work out. There's actually a 3rd church too. So it's just, to me, it's interesting. I really wanted those jobs just because I wanted something to allow me to move back closer to home. And I would have taken any job, and I ended up kind of taking a job that wasn't great for me. But I really wanted those church jobs, and it never came to fruition. It just never worked out. Look at the sun right there, blinding you. And it turned out for the better, because I kind of doubled down I got a job sort of managing a studio/event facility here in the Nashville area down in Murfreesboro, and immediately knew it wasn't right. Only lasted 2 months, and during that time I was doing that and doubling down on this home studio corner thing that I'd started to see if I could maybe turn that into a business and a way to make money and generate income for me and my wife, and then soon to be family, because she was about to get pregnant. Little did I know. Anyway, all that to say, I have almost never in my 10 years of running Home Studio Corner, other than that job at Sweetwater and a couple of jobs in between before I was full-time with HSC, even within HSC, I've never made all my money from one thing. So, I sell courses, but I also do client work, and I also do critiques for people, and I also will do sessions for folks, and I'll do the occasional consulting thing where I go out to someone's studio and help them, and then there's just a couple different ways that's come to fruition. There's a little bit of ad revenue, so there's lots of different streams just within what I do, and I feel like it's even more obvious when I look at musicians around Nashville that there are some who are the best musicians you've ever heard, but they might be a plumber on the weekends, or a plumber during the week and a killer musician on the weekends. And I think I used to look at something like that and think, boy, that person's a failure. It's dirty. I hate that has tended to be my response, but that means I put that response on myself. So if I'm not doing the exact thing I want to do all day, every day for my job, there's this sense that that's a failure. And if anything, I mentioned this in a recent email, there's a podcast I've been listening to called The Pivot by Andrew Osenga. He's a Christian artist here in Nashville, and he interviews all his buddies, both in the music world and also just regular business folks and things like that. And the one common denominator in their stories is they've made major shifts in their careers. And it has been life-giving for me to realize that I may not do what I'm doing right now may not be anything like what I'm doing 10 years from now. And that's okay. It's kind of exciting. I didn't see myself 2 years ago working for 2 churches and still keeping Home Studio Corner and dueling mixes and all that going. And that's made life fairly stressful, because there's just I haven't drunk my coffee. I have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of just different things, and a lot of potential balls to be dropped, and I've dropped a few. And so it'll be nice to go down to just one church and Home Studio Corner and client work and all that stuff. Anyway, all this to say, don't get super hung up on only doing one thing. If there's something that you love to do, for example, if you just really genuinely enjoy mixing more than everything else, then absolutely mix as much as you can, but also be open to other ways to use your skills that you weren't looking for, or that perhaps you even kind of look down on. For example, if you're watching this, then most likely you're in you've got some sort of recording software, right? You could record a song. So you know the basics of how to record and edit audio. Now, the context for that for you has been music. You want to record guitars and drums and bass and vocals and keyboards and all that stuff. You want to make music. But an adjacent parallel skill would be general audio editing for business people with podcasts, for example. They may not know even how to record, and they want you to come set up your gear and record their podcast every week. Or you come set it up, show them how to use it, they send you the audio, you chop it up, mix it, EQ it, get it sounding good, add in the bumper music, all that stuff that you may think, oh, that's so simple, it's so dead simple. But for people who don't know how to do it, it's voodoo magic, right? Think about the first time you opened up a piece of recording software. Maybe it was intuitive to you because you already were into music, but for the average Joe, I hate that phrase, the average Joe who's just a business dude who listened to Gary Vaynerchuk, who said start a podcast, so he gets a bunch of gear and records it and it sounds terrible, or it takes him 8 hours to edit the podcast because he doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't have the time to really learn how to do it, much less take the time to do it because he's busy running his business. That's where someone like you could step in and be the editor. It doesn't matter how long it takes you, it matters the benefit to the customer or the amount of time and money that it saves them. It might take you 30 minutes to edit this podcast, but it takes him 3 hours. And let's say his time is worth $300 an hour, so you've just saved him $900 by doing your work that only took you 30 minutes. So in essence, you could charge him $899 and you've made a good deal for him, right? Now, obviously that almost $1,000 for a podcast episode is crazy talk, but you get what I'm saying. It's not about, if you could whip that thing out in 10 minutes and do it well, the variable isn't the time. The variable is what value are you bringing. So that's why I tell people, don't charge when you mix a song, don't charge by the hour, because if you mix it quickly, you're getting paid less for being better at your job. Charge by the mix, by the project, and that way, if you work quicker, good for you, because you earned it, because you've developed that skill. Look how pretty it is here. I'm in like the woods right now. You've earned that, you've developed that skill and can do things quickly. People aren't paying you for their time, for your time. They're paying you for the results that you can get for them. It really is irrelevant to them how much time it takes. Now, some people will say, okay, how many hours is that? And I would say, some mixes take an hour, some mixes take 7. I charge a flat rate for either. So if it takes 7, you win, because I had to spend a lot more time on it. I don't say that part, but that's the idea. So when you're thinking about what you're doing, and even if you have no intention of doing audio for a living or even making any money from it, I think you could still find a lot of joy in different types of work that maybe you've never thought about before, that don't fall into that category of making and recording music. An example is mastering. I never really got into mastering for a long time, and then people kept asking me to master their stuff. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. It sounds boring. And then I started doing it and realized, man, this is really fun. There's a lot of similarities with mixing, but there are also a lot of differences, and it's really creative in a very constrained sort of a way. And I've gotten to where when someone asks me about mastering, I get a little excited, because it's a new skill that I've developed that wasn't what I maybe thought I wanted to do, but I love it. Does that make sense? So I know I've been talking for 17 minutes now. All this to say is, if you love creating, then don't turn your nose up at different ways of creating that you may not be able to see that they're very creative. So, for example, these church jobs that I'm doing, I get to get up there and play with a group of musicians on Sundays. That's absolutely creative. I get to write new arrangements of songs and hymns. That's creative for sure. But also just the task of setting out an order of service every Sunday, where we have different elements that we do, where we read a piece of scripture here, and then we sing a song, and then we play a little bit of music while another piece of scripture is read by someone else. Then we have the confession of sin, which is something that I write that everyone says together. So it's almost like writing poetry every week for the congregation to use, and there's a weight to that, because that's a big part of the service, and I want to do that well and be responsible and steward that responsibility well. And there's so much creativity even in that stuff that I would have, if you had asked me, is that creative? I would have said, no, it sounds terrible, it sounds boring, sounds menial, but it's actually really life-giving and really fun, and I really do enjoy it. So all this to say, creativity is all around us. If you spend most of your days doing something that you would consider non-creative, I bet it's way more creative than you think. And if you spend your nights and weekends turning your nose up at certain types of work because they don't seem all that creative, I challenge you to challenge yourself on that, and just give it a shot. You may happen across something that you never thought you would love and have passion for, and it could be this game changer. And for the next 20 years, you're going to be doing that thing, in addition to still making music and all the stuff that we're normally doing. But it's going to be another layer to add on top of what you do that's going to bring a lot of joy to you and potentially bring a lot of value to other people. There's this place in Nashville where there's these longhorn cows, steers or whatever. I'm not in Texas, you don't see that a lot. Anyway, they're amazing. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say today. If you watched this far, thank you. If you didn't watch this far, you're not listening to me right now because you didn't watch this far. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. If there's someone you know who you think needs to hear this, tag them or share this with them and let them know. And as always, if I can do anything for you, let me know. See ya.